Hi, and welcome back to more of my sea kayaking adventures, and this time we're exploring the complex tide races off the west coast of Scotland. Grey Dogs, a day at the races. Our plan today was head south from Easdale into the iconic Slate Isles area. We'd pass Fladda, Belnahua, Rubha Fiola and Lunga to play and explore the Grey Dog tide races on a full spring tide during the flood cycle. From there we'd continue north up the west side of Lunga and Rubha Fiola, then on to Fladda and Belnahua before returning to Easdale. An early and chilly start after a cosy night in the camper at Easdale. It was great seeing me old dive mates again. They came down to see us off. Graham lives in Easdale and Davy was just visiting. Once on the water, we passed Easdale Island with its many flooded slate quarry pits. Heading south, the silhouettes of the Black Isle and iconic Garvelix Islands could be seen off to the west. On reaching Rubha Fiola, I wanted to show the guys one of the two possible portage points to give access to the west side of the islands, as an ebb stream on the north end can often be too strong to paddle against. Will's keen eye had spotted a wild mink.
The mink?
All right. Yeah, it's just run up the grass there.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
It's small and black.
Yeah, went up that way.
Possible portage point number 2. Once an old clearance house on the Isle of Lunga. We passed the south end of Lunga, heading west, and finally reached the northern channel of the Grey Dogs. We are slowly being taken in on the tidal stream at around an hour into the flood cycle, and past the island and western rocks, which separate and deflect the main flood stream entering Grey Dogs from the south in the deeper and wider main channel. My main intention of the trip, apart from a right good play on the races, was to video the separate tidal streams and eddy lines, including the mini whirlpools, throughout the build-up of the flood cycle on full spring tides. The standing waves, or play waves as we say, from the northern channel were starting to build as the flood increased, and the mixing water passing the island and the western rocks became stronger, adding to the confused eddies and whirlpools. Often I'd let the kayak go offline and catch the eddies, which would result in the boat doing a full 360 degrees, unable to stop it.
The main flow's over there, Will. If you want to. Can't see why not.
Further out to the west, the streams from both the north and south channels would converge to produce an even stronger stream and bigger set of play waves. It has to be said that the conditions on the day were perfect to give you an idea how the various streams work within Grey Dogs, but also note how confused the eddy lines, mixing vertical eddies and small whirlpools quickly appear and disappear, adding confusion to a fast-moving tidal stream. With any wind and or westerly swell, this place would be the wrong place to get caught out in, or unsuspectingly swept into. However, today was calm, and it was our playtime.
It's fine. It's fine. There's the odd one breaking off. But no, it's fine.
Derek manoeuvres nicely to muscle in on some of the action. Despite getting carried away, as we all do sometimes, it's always policy to keep a regular eye out for any changing weather.
Looking a bit grizzly out to the west, isn't it?
Whoops. A collision isn't really what's required in a tide race.
Sorry about that, Andy.
It was fantastic to see our group all paddling at a level where everyone was getting stuck in, completely at home and making best use of the great conditions. Plenty of room for everyone's fun, as we each swapped our playground area to another tidal stream or play wave. A keen eye is required in the eddy lines, as many whirlpools will just appear in front or alongside, which can grab the boat if you get complacent. Upwellings and vertical eddies will also suddenly appear, pushing the boat sideways.
Some lovely little whirlpools opening up.
And Will's reply was, if lovely and whirlpools are correct in the same sentence. With around 2 hours into the flood now, the tidal stream and waves were building quite nicely. I was having a bad day at the office, struggling to keep my line and getting kicked out to one side or another. As most of the group continued to play, I landed and got the drone out to capture them, trying to give some perspective in the tide races. Sod's law as usual, as one person lands, everyone else thinks it's lunchtime and follows me in. The drone footage now shows a totally different perspective, with each channel and its tide race clearly visible. Standing waves merging with circling areas of water to form whirlpools moving down the eddy lines. The wider and deeper southern channel scoops up a greater volume of the flood stream coming up the eastern shore of Scarba before turning west, where it produces its turbulence further westward. The north channel, sandwiched between the Lunga shore and the island with its western rocks, funnels the tide in, squeezing it like a thumb over the end of a hosepipe. A deep canyon exists between the island and the western rocks, and has an entrance in the southern channel, grabbing the flow and channeling it into the northern channel to mix with its flow to create greater turbulence downstream. I'm fortunate that my old diving experiences have provided me with this knowledge, having explored most of the seabed in grey dogs over the years. Graham, my old dive buddy, seen at the beginning of this video, still dives the Pinnacle in the Gulf of Corryvreckan at the south end of Scarba, but those tales can wait for another day.
Just give the shot of Will, please. Bully out. Bully.
Lunch over and refueled, it was back in the boats and time for another play in the races. The spring tide was now around maximum flow, and the standing waves and turbulence from the converging north and south streams had increased and moved westward with the increased flow. Now time for a really good play. With great fun enjoyed by the entire group. It's great having this much fun, but I'm also very mindful of what this place will really be like in any opposing westerly swell, strong winds, or even just reduced visibility. Sadly, playtime was finally over, and we headed back north up the western side of Lunga and Rubha Fiola, as we never paddled back to the east side against the flood tide on Maximum Springs. The west coast of Lunga and Rubha Fiola has very little tidal flow until you approach the south end of the Black Isle. Our minds wandered as we paddled along, recalling events of the day, a fabulous day as the sun now began to set out to the west. Aware of the strong flood stream direction off the north end of Rubha Fiola turning westwards, and our intended route home north was via Fladda and Belnahua, I suggested to the group to paddle south in the back eddy for several hundred metres down the east side before ferry gliding east to cross the strong tidal stream. This would allow us to travel with tidal assistance straight up to Fladda. Once in the main flow, it was only a short time before arriving beneath Fladda Lighthouse.
Brilliant. Enjoy that.
Great call. You know, I don't know if it's land here or land on Belnahua.
Belnahua's probably the best bit.
Years ago, the lighthouse and surrounding sea wall was a brilliant white, maintained by the Northern Lighthouse Board, and stood out in the distance far out to sea like a ship's bridge. Sadly, it now stands dirty grey, as most of the buildings have been sold off to private ownership.
No.
Ferry glide across.
Ferry glide across. You might have to come up into the stream a little bit, but we should get a slingshot here anyway.
Another short ferry glide would take us across the stream and over to the iconic Belnahua with its ruined street of slate workers' cottages.
You see the drop? The drop in the water there. Absolutely fab.
A short break on Belnahua to chat and admire the fabulous clouds and colours out to the west after the sun had set. Back on the water, there was still fun to be had, playing in the little tide race off the southeast corner of the island. Sorry Ian, I just couldn't control my laughter after seeing her out of the corner of my eye, slapped full in the face by that wave. Some lovely little play waves to surf, but not enough time to fully enjoy them, as the light was fading fast and another 3 miles to go.
Woohoo! Right, that's it, home time.
A little while later the light had completely gone, and now just the house lights from Easdale and Ellenabeich to head for home. Well, Will, what a day.
Absolutely brilliant, Jeff. Thanks for your...
Absolutely cracking.